were you told by anybody serving in His Majesty's government that you should in any way, shape or form slow down or minimise payments or redress to sub-postmasters?
Yeah, let me just answer that question so I think you used the phrase nod and a wink. So let me say exactly what took place. I met Miss Mumby for an introductory meeting in January of last year. I went through the many challenges that we face: dysfunctional governance, unreliable systems, inadequate controls, hugely loss-making business, all the issues around remediation and a poor culture. And I said this is a 3 to 5 year turnaround situation at the Post Office. And I had in mind it was probably the latter rather than the former. She said, in response to that, this is no time for long-term planning. She said money is tight at the Treasury, and you need to really understand that. And I said, well, in terms of trying to hold back, there are only 3 levers of big cash outflows that we can pull. One is the inquiry costs, which are significant. One is compensation, and one is the replacement to Horizon, which is the biggest lever. And I said, I said actually, in detail, I said the inquiry, the costs will have to be what they will be surely. In respect of compensation, we need to be to do the right thing by postmasters in taking this money, and we're in dire need of a new system. And she said, again, repeated again, money is very tight. This is no time to rip off the Band-Aid. And I was left in no doubt that this was not a time to rip off the Band-Aid, and I'll have to look at those 3 levers. So, and I went back to, I sent the note. It was such an unusual conversation that I did a full note of it, actually putting in quotation marks what I was told. And so I went, and of course I was accused of being a liar until thankfully I found this note just a few days ago. And since then I think the focus has changed from nobody said that to what did it mean, and I just explained what it meant. I went to see Nick Reed and I said, what do you make of this? And he said, they live in a different world. And he said to me, what do you want me to do about this? And I said, well, I think there's nothing we can do about the inquiry. The costs will be what they have to be, although we should just look at the legal costs. They're clearly just out of control. We should do... on compensation, actually, we should accelerate. This is just the morally right thing to do. We should accelerate on compensation. But of the biggest element, which was the Horizon system, I said, look, we've been put on notice. Money is very tight. There's no room for a begging bowl. There's no room for mistakes. We need to be absolutely sure on the spend. So I didn't say slow down to meet the Treasury. I just said we just need to be... I'd like to take a double take myself on what this is all about in terms of how we proceed, because there's no begging bowl. We've only got one chance of investing in the Horizon replacement system and getting it right. So that is the full story of what took place. So I think.
Can I just be really clear?
So as your nod and a wink phrase was I thought, well, that just about sums it up.
So you came away from the meeting with Sarah Mumby fairly clear that you had been asked to minimise cost, including the costs of compensation.
Yeah, those are the 3 levers, of which compensation was about one.
Now, the Secretary of State, in her letter to me last Friday, says that these claims are completely fictitious and you have changed your story. Is that true?
I haven't at all. I think, of course, at the time, she said that they were lies because... of course, I couldn't find the file notes, so she said there was sort of a lie and it couldn't have been said. Since then, the tone of what she was saying about me has changed because, of course, I found the file note, thankfully. So I can only rest by the file note and the story which I've told you, which is my best recollection.
But the Secretary of State also says that your email dated 6th of January 2023 does not mention specifically compensation, and she is praying that in aid as evidence in her accusations against you.
Well, I think it's important that file note was not a verbatim comment of everything that took place. I mean, it was the particular phrases she used which I thought set the tone of what I was being asked. If it had been a verbatim file note of all the things I've talked about, it would have been a 3-page file note, but that's not what I set out to do. I set out to just say that this is the thrust of the conversation, and that's what I went through with Nick Reed afterwards.
So the Secretary of State and Sarah Mumby have set out in subsequent correspondence that the budget for compensation is ring-fenced and provided by the government. Now, actually, Mr Reed said to us earlier that there is a post office contribution to the compensation fund, but you're right. It is mainly ring-fenced and held within the Treasury, but how the ring-fencing, if the provision, say we have exoneration and much more money is paid out, the amount that you ring-fence becomes larger. Similarly, if we were tough on compensation, it became smaller, that would release the money that we've ring-fenced. So that's how ring-fencing works. And in respect of ring-fencing, it's really important, if you read the Post Office accounts, you'll see on page 65 where we talk about a going concern, etc. In particular, when we say it's very specific, there is no financial guarantee. This letter of comfort very specifically says there's no financial guarantee. So clearly, from the point of the fact that it's ring-fenced, it sounds as if it's done and dusted, but actually it's not. It's not a hard ring fence.
They specifically say in the accounts this is not a guarantee. So,
well, that's interesting because the Secretary of State points out that the government has got no incentive to delay because there is a ring-fenced compensation fund. Do you buy that argument?
The answer is the only route. The big numbers are in respect of overturned convictions. And I think somebody referred to 4% that's been paid out. The fact is it was going nowhere in terms of the exoneration costs. And the whole thing opened up subsequent to the Mr Bates TV programme. Until that point, no headway was being made. So I think that's worth understanding.
In her letter and file notes, Sarah Mumby says this. This is dated 21st of February. She says, we discussed the post office operational funding, not compensation funding. She goes on to say, I'm able to give you, the Secretary of State, the strongest reassurance that I did not at any point suggest to Mr Staunton or to imply to him in any way whatsoever that there should be a delayed compensation payments for postmasters. I do not believe they should be delayed, and no minister has ever asked me to make delays. Does that assertion by Sarah Mumby undermine your assertions?
Well, it does. Her file note is written a year and a day, a month after my file note, so it's not a contemporaneous file note by any means. It's written with the purpose of answering this point. So I'm not casting any aspersions on Miss Mumby, but that's worth fully understanding.
Do you think Sarah Mumby may have misremembered?
There are a lot of issues going around about misremembering, lying, etc., and that's not what I want to get into. I'm just explaining what I know. I'm not here to guess.
But on the face of it, then, it appears that Sarah Mumby may have walked away from your conversation with a different interpretation to you. That would be perhaps a generous
I think the fact is, when you talk about three levers, this is not a PhD in accounting. This is three very simple issues that we're talking about.
Well, I don't
think there's much room for misinterpretation.
But Sarah Mumby does say in her file note, 21 February 2024, that there is, quote, complete firewall between the two budgets for compensation and operations. But you're telling the committee this afternoon that it's not as simple as that.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, it's, as I say, now that we've made all these issues on exoneration, the fact is the amount of money held in Treasury within this firewall ought to have been increased significantly because of the exoneration payments. So it's not a number that's fixed. And equally, as I say, if it goes down, more money is available for whatever, NHS, tax cuts or whatever it is.
The Secretary of State goes on to say, she goes on to present her appointment letter or her priorities letter to you dated 29th of June last year, and that says that you are to provide fair compensation to those affected by the historic failures, and in particular to inject pace into the delivery of compensation for those with overturned convictions. That instruction sounds like it's at odds with the impression you walked away with from the conversation with Sarah Mumby.
Absolutely. Because Ms Mumby was talking about the financing issues within Treasury, and I got the very clear message that, I think I put in the file that money is tight. I mean, it was all I was doing was representing what I was told. I mean, of course, I just thought I'd done this file note. It would never see the light of the day other than talking to Nick about it, and I said we're going to proceed with compensation, and I will take the consequences. So
the signal.
It wasn't. What other reason would I have done it? It's not. It wasn't done for trying to have a discussion in a year's time with the Secretary of State. It was just done as a matter of routine because the words were so odd.
But the signals that you received were different to the letter of what the Secretary of State laid out.
Correct.
So there was an ambiguity.
Yes, I think, as you said, you used the phrase nod and a wink. I was left with the issue that if I could pull any levers, I should. And actually, I felt it was not an unreasonable lever to pull in respect of the Horizon replacement, but I was not going to go anywhere near a morally wrong decision not to pay our postmasters and not to do anything that impacted the statutory inquiry.